Agreed? Agreed. Okay.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to thank Senator Kelleher for allowing me to be part of this important piece of legislation, and to all the hard work of the travelling community and the Irish Traveller Movement on their work and activism in this area. I am honoured to second this legislation, and I am encouraged by the broad support for the legislation in this House. After hours of thinking about what I wanted to say and how to phrase how important I think this bill is, I came to the realisation that I was finding it difficult because I can speak about my own experience of stigma, social class and barriers in education and experience of deprivation and so on. But it must be said that no matter how difficult the things that I have experienced, my traveller friends have experienced so much more. The expectation and aspiration that I could have gone on to do my Leaving Cert was very much there for me, but it wasn't for my traveller friends. I remember starting first year in school and noticing that the travellers in my classroom in primary school had not arrived for their first day of secondary school. I remember the first time my friend invited me into his home. I had known him for 10 years, and I heard him as a young traveller man for the very first time that day. We were only kids, and I asked him why he doesn't talk like the rest of his family when we are out on the street. His reply: "I'll only get slagged, Lynn." Imagine spending your day with your settled peers, having to master their use of language, their accent, and suppressing your own identity to avoid comment or jeering from your own friends. Look at how history and culture was so important in the 19th century to progress cause of identity and self-determination. When a people's culture and history is validated and supported at state level, it will create a more inclusive Ireland. But more importantly, it will give the traveller community a sense of belonging to that state, and that state is displaying ownership of all its people and cultures. Traveller history and culture is Irish history and culture. It's part of the multicultural history of Ireland. It will not only benefit the traveller community, but the majority of settled community just as much. It will allow for a far more open discourse in the coming decades to what it is to be Irish in a continuing changing society. Imagine if my friend could have expressed his identity, history and culture, but we as a state supported and validated who he was right throughout his life. Imagine we as a state had not imposed the stigma and marginalisation that we did in past oppressive policies. Over the last week or so, after conversations with friends and organisations in the travelling community, a similar theme came true in all that they said. Travellers in school are made to feel ashamed of their identity. This happened without any of us actually taking the time to know what their history and culture is, what it means to be a traveller. We have stigmatised and shamed the traveller community out of ignorance and in an effort to force them to be us, as if we are somehow superior. Be settled. Just as Thomas McCann said last week at the launch of the cross-party Oireachtas Group on Travellers. In 1963, the government report from the Commission on Itinerancy described travellers as problems, for which there would be no final solution. Ultimately, this state considered travellers as failed, settled people. We must undo this. We can begin by educating all of the generations to come on traveller history and culture. Education, awareness and acceptance are at the foundation of ending discrimination, and I believe the onus is on this state to be front and centre of ending that discrimination. It was largely a state-imposed discrimination dating back over several decades. There is an absolute need to develop tools to include the history of traveller culture in all parts of the primary and secondary syllabus. We would look to include it in CSPE programme, but also we can look at social geography. Nomadism should be included as a definition with reference to other Indigenous peoples. Social and scientific, the definition of family should be expanded to include the model of extended family. Music, traveller music from the musicians such as Johnny Doherty and Paddy Keenan should be included in the curriculum. Art, curriculum projects should include traveller artistic contributions as one of the options alongside, say, still life. In short, traveller culture should be throughout the curricula at all stages of education, not solely as a once-off module in a once-a-year class. This is one phase of addressing the inequality and discrimination of travellers, but we must be aware of the fact we have much to do in regards to resources and accommodation. Recognition of ethnicity does not magically bring travellers up to a place of equity with the rest of society. It does not erase the harm we have done to their community and their lives. Some of the ways in which education can be a tool to achieve this are culturally appropriate primary school programmes, traveller resource teachers to be reinstated, traveller special needs assistants, teachers to be employed, traveller home liaison supports, specific training for young traveller men. Traveller organisations should be resourced to develop a national network committed to supporting traveller men. To finish, we must ensure that an inclusive and culturally respectful education system is available to all. It is imperative that the education sector meets that need. This includes mandatory diversity awareness training for all educators, investment to be made in culturally appropriate learning environments, and culturally appropriate learning materials must be developed for all sectors of the education system. I truly regret that I spent my school years oblivious to the harm being inflicted on the travelling community and on my traveller friends. I hope this bill can start to change that for the traveller children in generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.